as I've heard, it comes off like shaking with your right and moving with your left.
Sure, and that's a totally fair question. Yeah, that's a totally fair question. And the first thing I'm going to say to that is there are a ton of people in Israel who are very anti the settlement movement. But perhaps more importantly, never mind the people, you got to remember that Israel is a democracy. And so over the course of its history, from 48 till the present, there's been loads of different leaders, as opposed to, in Palestine where you've had Arafat and Abbas and then Hamas, and that's basically been it. There's been leaders of every political persuasion. It's a little bit like the U.S., where, someone's not doing so hot, the other political party can get in. So at various points in time, you've had, hawkish leaders, and I think it's certainly fair to say that Netanyahu was a hawkish leader, but you've also had dovish leaders, the likes of Shimon Peres, Yitzhak Rabin, Ehud Olmert, who have been much more on the, let's give them, let's get this deal done, and let's do a land for peace deal. And by the way, it's amazing because they're Zionists and yet they're willing to give up land. So that doesn't make sense because they're supposed to be expansionists. But nevertheless, numerous Israeli leaders have had that stance. And so depending on which Israeli leader is in power is how you've seen the treatment of the settlements. In cases like Netanyahu's, there's no doubt that they're using it as leverage. They're like, you know what? You don't want to do a peace deal? Fine, we're going to keep on building settlements. And that's a very hawkish approach. I'm not saying I agree with it, but it's a very hawkish approach. And there's other leaders that would say, at various times saying, quit building settlements. It's not going to get us to where we need to go in a two-state solution. It just depends on what year you're talking about, is the answer to your question.
So really, there's a split in the population and leadership and how it should be handled, essentially.
Yes.
Like, not everybody agrees.
And just like the U.S., like if a leader does not such a good job, then they get kicked out. And, they can be outvoted. And so it's conceivable that the next leader of Israel could be very, very dovish. Who knows?
Well, what do you make of the criticism itself?
I think
do you think it's a valid criticism for people to point out and go, hey,
yes.
This really doesn't seem fair?
Of all the criticisms of Israel, I think it's the fairest. Because all of the two-state solution plans that have been offered, and again, I just want to stress that if you look those up, Israel's on board, and it's pretty much Palestine, despite them claiming that they're suffering, and there's definitely suffering. Palestine has failed because of a lack of leadership. 95% should be good enough if your people are starving and victims of genocide as they say they are. 95% of the land, that should be good enough to strike a deal. But nevertheless, my point is that, yes, I think these settlements is probably something that is a point of contention for good reason, because whenever there's been peace plans offered, generally speaking, a lot of the areas that have been offered have been in those same lands that are being settled. So you can certainly argue it's counterproductive. But I think where the frustration lies is that there hasn't been quick enough progress. There hasn't been enough people coming to the table on the Palestinian side where it looks like something's imminent to prevent Israel from building there, because Israel is tiny. Like, we're not talking Montana or Saudi Arabia or Alaska. So it's not like there's loads and loads of land to spare. And so if there's literally no movement and no suggestion of peace coming anytime soon, they're like, well, what the hell? Why don't we build here? Now, again, I don't think it's right.
No, I hear you on that. And for me, that's always been my main kind of steady criticism. It doesn't seem like a way to do diplomacy.
I agree with that.
On one hand that you want a two-state solution, and then argue with your left hand that that's not in fact what you want. And I will grant you that does seem like something, as you've explained it to me, that differs in Israeli politics between, depending on the year you have. That's always seemed to be, to me, the fairest criticism, that it's very hard to believe. We say we can't negotiate with the Hamas leaders, but it's also hard to negotiate with a leader who doesn't keep promises, right? It makes me wonder as an American, who are the partners to negotiate with? Not saying that the state of Israel is not the entity used to negotiate. More noting that if you're on the outside